All right, folks, so today we're going to be taking a look again from Packet 1, another excerpt from Lesson 10, Types of Languages. This is from page 41. The instructions are read the beginning of the scientific account about mollusks. So easy enough. We're already given that this is going to be a scientific account, so we know our genre is going to be nonfiction. Therefore, for our genre-based thinking jobs, we know that we're just going to look for the topic, which we should learn pretty early since it's an informational text. And then we're going to take a gist, annotation for each paragraph, and figure out how each paragraph relates back to the topic. In this instance, however, we're just mostly going to be reading this short paragraph, and then we're going to take a look at figurative language, connotative language, and technical language in the text. And just a quick review, figurative language is when the language is non-literal and it compares two things using like a simile or a metaphor or some other kind of literary technique. So it uses something that's not literal in order to help us understand something literal. Especially since this is an informational text. For a connotative meaning, that's always opposite denotative. So a denotative meaning just means literal, but the connotative meaning is going to tell us, does the word have a positive or neutral or negative kind of connotation, positive, neutral, or negative. It's going to tell us something about kind of value judgment on the word. The word's going to tell us that. So with the technical term, that's just a term that's used specifically within one type of discipline. So we're going to be looking here about text about mollusks. So we know this is something that's mostly studied by biologists. So we might come across a technical term used specifically by biologists to help us understand something about the mollusks. So let's take a look at this text and try to take account of anytime we see figurative, connotative, or technical language. The Mollusk Family by Deshaun Miller. Did you ever imagine that a tiny snail and a giant octopus might be part of the same family tree? Well, let's just stop for a second. So as soon as we read the title, The Mollusks Family, we should already be able to tell that this is going to be our topic. This text is going to be primarily about mollusks. And if you don't know what that is, we can read on to try to figure out if we can make sense of what is a mollusk. What's a mollusk family? Did you ever imagine that a tiny snail and a giant octopus might be part of the same family tree? Most people don't realize that snails, mussels, squid, and even octopus belong to the same category of creatures known as mollusks. Okay, so a mollusk is a category of creature. So it's a kind of animal. And of that kind of animal, we get examples of that kind. So we might be talking about a snail, an octopus, a mussel, a squid. They all belong to the same category of animal. Why they are categorized together, we really don't know yet, but these things are all grouped or categorized together. So we can add that to our note. So a mollusk is a kind of animal, examples of which are snails, octopus, mussels, squids. Great. These amazing creatures are invertebrates, which means they do not have spines. Mollusks share three basic body parts: a foot, a body, and a mantle. So these are definitely technical terms. And we might also add to our group that a technical term would be something like a category. That's a scientific word. But this is definitely, these are words that are used specifically by biologists in order to make sense of mollusks: a foot, a body, and a mantle. So we have right here a real clear and obvious example of technical terms. And if I can pause and go back for a second, my eyes are just looking at this and I'm seeing the sentence again. It says, these amazing creatures are invertebrates, which means that they do not have spines. So the word amazing is really one of those words that is there's a connotative meaning to the word amazing. We know that that has a positive value to it, has a positive connotation. It tells us something about the author's point of view about mollusks. The author is excited about mollusks. So we're going to add that this is a connotative word that shows author's positive point of view. Okay, so let's pick up right here. So we know the mollusks have a foot, a body, and a mantle. The foot is a fleshy part of the mollusk's body made up mostly of muscle tissue. In a snail, the foot is the part of the mollusk that meets the ground and gently rolls the body forward. From this slow, measured motion comes the phrase, a snail's pace. So this might be an example. Well, it's a phrase that comes from it, not really an example of figurative language exactly. So maybe could be figurative. At a snail's pace shows that the snail goes, no, it's not really figurative. So let's keep going. A mollusk's soft body is like a fragile bag that holds the heart, the guts, and the various internal organs. So this is definitely figurative language. So to compare the mollusk's body with a bag, it's not really a bag. It's just saying that it's like a bag that holds everything inside of it, the heart, the guts, and the various internal organs. So by using like, the simile that is like, we're able to see a comparison between the body of the mollusk and a bag. So this is definitely going to be an example of figurative language. Okay, let's keep going. A mollusk's soft body is like a fragile bag that holds the heart, the guts, and the various internal organs. The mantle, and this is another technical term, the mantle, which is often a shell or a tough, sturdy covering, functions like a suit of armor to protect the body. So with mantle, we get an example of another technical term. That's a word used specifically by biologists. And then here we get another example of figurative language, and this is even more figurative, right? So the mollusk's body is compared to a bag before, but here the mantle or the shell is said to be like a suit of armor. So again, we have a comparison to the shell. The shell is compared to a suit of armor. And because it doesn't just say that it is a suit of armor, it's not going to be a metaphor. Because it says it's like a suit of armor, this is going to be an example of a simile. Compares the mantle to a suit of armor. Okay, so we've already done all of our work here. Let's just go ahead and fill this out real quick. So what's one example of figurative language? We just went over this. So suit like a suit of armor. That is figurative. It's an example of a simile. The effect on meaning. Okay, so the effect that the simile has on the meaning is it gives us a clearer understanding of the mantle by comparing it to a suit of armor. Great. So our next task is to find an example of connotative meaning. And the only one that really popped out to me was this sentence, these amazing creatures are invertebrates, which means they do not have spines. So the word amazing is an example of a word that has connotative meaning. Amazing. And the effect on meaning, well, like we said before, the effect is it tells us that the author has a positive view or feeling on the mollusk. And now we need to find an example of technical term. So there's a variety of technical terms that are here. We talk about categories, those are technical. We talk about the foot, the body, and the mantle, those are parts of the animal itself, specific language, words that are used by biologists to describe the parts of the body of the mollusk. So let's just put down mantle, for example. The effect that it has on meaning. Well, the effect of technical terms are it's a vocabulary that's shared by a closed group of people that allows them to talk about the content of their discipline in a way that's specific to them. So it's very specific. It allows scientists to have a way of describing in detail the parts of a mollusk, and specifically in this part, the shell.